Namaste guys, I'm going to do a video today about when do you feel the energies of the planets when they're transiting. Do you feel it on that same day that they have a certain aspect, or do you feel it a day before or a day after? When do you actually feel the energy of a certain aspect? Either it be a trine, or when a planet enters a certain house, when there's a square, when there's an opposition. How does it work? Okay, so this is what I've learned over the years, okay, from personal experience. Not because I read it from a book, but from a personal experience, I have noticed that I do feel the energy a day before the actual aspect takes place. And I think it's because since the planets are very far, maybe it already happened and then it hits us before our time. Okay, it's kind of like a different time frame. That's what it is. We're actually receiving the energy late. Just like it takes 8 minutes for the sunlight to get here, we're not actually receiving the actual energy from that time. Okay, we're receiving late energy. Now, when I experience my Saturn return, my Saturn is in the first house. However, I did experience my Saturn return according to Vedic astrology, and I go to Western because that's how I feel that my houses are laid out by Western astrology. However, for some reason, my Saturn return was felt in the 12th house, like a house away from that actual Saturn return. I think it's due because Saturn is such a big planet and it's so powerfully magnetic that you could feel the effects of it even though it's in another house. Let's suppose that you have your first house starting 15 degrees Sagittarius, right? Like this graph right here. Okay, your house, your first house, your ascendant is right here, right? And let's say Venus. Okay, Venus is transiting through 0 degrees Sagittarius, right? But that's not your ascendant. That actually falls in your 12th house. You will feel that energy in your first house. Okay, you will feel that 12th house energy. Okay, in your first house. Why? Because it's hitting that margin right there. You see? It's hitting that margin. That's your first house. This is your first house. However, your first house is connected to the 12th house. So when that energy comes down, you're actually feeling it. Okay? And that happens with every single planet. And I've noticed this too. So that's something that you should take in consideration when you're writing your aspects in your calendar, your yearly calendar. Probably might want to do them a day before. You might want to do them on the day before. That way you know when to expect the energy. Okay, it's delayed. Also, when you have a Mercury retrograde, I always feel my Mercury retrograde a day before or hours before that initial Mercury retrograde. And again, I think it's because of the time delayed. Another thing I wanted to discuss was that a lot of people have been asking me, well, you know, I don't have a 7th house or I don't have a 5th house because they're actually working with the Placidus system. I don't know if I pronounced it right, but that's not very accurate because there are some houses that, you know, that system going to give you like 3 degrees. I mean, that's totally not reasonable. You should be having 30 degrees for each house because you have 12 houses. You have 12 areas of life. So if you're missing one, it really doesn't make any sense. There's so many ways of reading charts, so many types of charts. So it's best to just stick to basics, okay? Go with 30 degrees, you know, follow this because this is so self-explanatory about how energy works, okay? And then once you, you know, get really into astrology, then you can start experimenting with different charts and different layers, okay? But yeah, keep it simple when you're starting astrology.